Call the meeting to order. Welcome. This is the Wareham Finance Committee on Thursday, June 4th, on a Zoom meeting, and hoping we can accomplish what we need to do today. Did everyone realize that Derek has sent out all the documentation for the rest of the, I assume he put it to everybody. Now that you mentioned it, I never even looked at the title line.
Sorry, Bernie, I put it to you. Yeah, that's
Just me. Well, I know I'm the
maybe-
most important person, but I mean, just, I don't want the other guys to feel slighted. Okay, I'll get it out to everybody at the end of the meeting. First date, we have a couple changes or modifications of the town meeting. Claire was on the, could have been joined us, but I was talking with her, and apparently up near her on one side will be myself, and on the other side will probably be the Derek, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and our attorney. But there will be sufficient distance in between, and so I'm the only one to read the articles. And I believe Derek is preparing one, call it an omnibus article, that is inclusive of all the moneyed articles. So if there isn't any discussion, we can vote at one on all of them at the same time.
I think there's, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Claire and I were just going over a little bit real quick too, and it's the there's some that we may pull out because I think we want to do one sort of omnibus, but some that we think there'll be discussion on, just pull those out and, as a just in case on some of them.
Okay, it's my understanding from Alan that the FEMA article is no longer in play.
Correct.
FEMA has pulled the maps themselves, and so there isn't an issue any longer because we were having a deadline, but that'll be taken up when FEMA decides it's appropriate from their maps are correct. So that on the annual town meeting, well, before we start, does anybody have any comments or anything they want to say?
I have a question on the budget, and that is on the library. What are we doing with the library budget?
2% reduction on the salary like the others.
So is that pretty much across the board,
Yes.
that 2%?
Yeah. Library, unfortunately, we're picking up some more costs. So I think some of the organizations were, let us know earlier that they, due to the market, that they didn't have any extra funds. However, there has been a strong resurgence in the market. So I will not be afraid to go hat in hand for them to put a little bit more money into it.
All right.
Other communities, frankly, right now, you're seeing furloughs at the library. You're seeing some of them being shut down and potentially not reopened. And I honestly think we're going to have to restructure how we do business with the library going forward and what we're going to do with that space, because there's also going to be educational proponents of how many kids you can fit in the classroom, etc. And we're going to have to eye that building into taking some additional resources potentially.
I know you were talking a while ago, and probably still are, about the possibility of moving the library.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, the library going into the future is more of a community center than a library. Your traditional brick and mortar library you'll see going away. But I don't know that we're the test case for that. Our motto usually is see what works and then steal the idea. So.
Okay.
To carry on what Derek mentioned about using the resources of the library with respect to possible classrooms, and like Department of Education is currently working on guidelines for opening up all the schools for the fall. And that's one of the issues that they were discussing is how do you maintain, if we have to, distance between the children they're wearing masks, washing of hands, and even one issue was up in transportation. You may have 60 plus children on a bus currently. How do you put the children on a bus and maintain the distance between them? Your fleet may have to triple in size in order to transport anybody. But those are the issues that they're discussing. And they need to cut down the number in each classroom so that now the town manager may have to give up his office because they need for classroom space too.
My little tiny place, huh?
I teach in between things.
Okay, one of the issues that, one of the articles we haven't discussed is the capital plan on the annual town meeting. Do you have any items on that, Derek, that you wanted to put in there?
Yeah, so just so everybody understands, the only capital going forward is the sewer, and it's within the sewer budget. So let me bring
Okay,
that
so
up.
Article 6 doesn't have anything in it, correct?
Article 6,
Which is the capital plan, FY21 capital plan.
right, but we have to, the way I look at it is the sewer budget is going to give the appropriation for the capital,
Mhm.
because there'll be 1.1 million. However, we need to go through the actual items of it in the capital line, because article whatever, 10,
Yeah.
thank you, is only the appropriation, and you need to actually approve the item themselves. So
Yes, the capital outlay, yes.
let me pull that up real quick and give you.
Yeah, the enterprise, the Article 10 is just the operation.
And so everybody understands, just be a minute. This is essentially the same money they dedicated to capital out of their budget for at least this fiscal year, and I was pretty sure it was the fiscal year beforehand. So it's a large number, obviously, but that's the business for this sort of operation.
Okay, so there's, on the Article 6, there'll be 1.1 million coming out of water pollution to fund a capital purchase.
Correct. So the first one is the Narrows force main of $150,000. That's to complete the design of the force main from Narrows pump station to the treatment plant. That's the one that was tested, found to be corroded, and was recommended to replace the pipe.
How much money was that, please, Derek?
$150,000.
Okay,
Heinz Field force main. The force main from Heinz Field to the treatment plant runs along Onset Ave and Minot Forest. The force main has 3 elevation changes and was built the same time as the force main from the Narrows pump station to the treatment plant. The proposal is to dig up 3 spots along the force main. And here's some jargon: grab coupons and do a scan. So,
you'll have to spell that for me.
yeah. And I'm hoping it's spelled correctly. It's coupons just like what you'd grab in the local flyer. So
Yeah, those are samples. Okay, what are we talking about for cost on that?
150,000.
Another
Also-
150?
Correct.
So that's to 300,000 total, correct?
Correct. That's the port. The next
Anything else?
the next portion is clarifiers 1 and 2. This is the drive units for the clarifiers. Both have reached their life cycle. It's past it now. That was a few years ago. They're on the capital plan. We will replace the drive units at the center of each clarifier, inspect, repair the drum as needed, and we'll check the scrappers. I think that's scrappers, and repair, adjust as needed, and they will add baffles to help with high flow, which ironically, baffles are not allowed in your septic tank anymore. So
And how much is that one?
that is 250,000.
Nice round numbers.
Yeah. And I think that's fine, especially with being within their own budget.
Yes.
rehab wet well at Narrows Pump Station for $150,000. The wet well at the Narrows Pump Station has deterioration of the concrete, corroded stairs, and valves that are corroded and inoperable. Because the valves have to regulate flow to the wet well, we cannot operate. We cannot isolate 2 of the wet wells, and they remain common. As part of the rehab, we will add new grinders for non-flushables. So those are the ones when people put down the flushable wipes, which truly aren't flushable, and they clog things. That's the things that grind them down. If I didn't like you folks, I would recommend you go down and take a tour of one of these pump stations into the bowels of it. But it's getting, I got to thank our employees over there. It's a tough thing to do, and the deterioration on some of the stairs and stuff. I'm sure it can be pretty scary. So, we have to remember that this isn't just about making things look nice. It's about the safety of our employees as well.
Well, we've toured the place a couple times, and we've grown concerned over the aging of the plant itself.
Yep.
And there's a number of issues that they desperately need to address on a planned basis. Anything else you got?
Yes. Now there is a total of $400,000 that they're putting towards grant matches, and let me go through that. It's an interesting approach. I think it passes muster. It's certainly interesting, and I appreciate interesting. The Water Pollution Control Facility will apply for grants to construct the line basin and complete the resiliency of the Narrows Pump Station. The design for the station resiliency is completed through grants. The design for the basin is near completion. The amount of the basin grant is $1.2 million. The amount of the resiliency for the pump station is $750,000. So the $400,000 is the town's match. In the event the grants are not received, then $400,000 would be used to rehab Heinz Field and Kennedy Pump Station wet wells. The wet wells at Kennedy and Heinz are equally as deteriorated as the Narrows. So when looking, because I'm the lucky one that has to craft these motions, that the Kennedy and Heinz, that portion I think we'll leave off until the fall town meeting. God willing, we can have it, because I think otherwise it could look like it's a double appropriation, if you will.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be, if we're at the situation where we need the Heinz Field and Kennedy pump stations rehabbed, why don't we just go ahead and do those also?
I could see them doing that. I think they're just trying to do everything they can through their budget, and they have the other item drawing down on their retained earnings. So I think it's I understand what you're saying, but I think we're still going to have to implement these incrementally.
All right, it just seems we've been incrementally implementing them over a period of time, and we hear each year that we need money for this, and it doesn't get done, and we need it for this, and it doesn't get done, and it's postponed till next year. We've got to stop postponing this work.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, that plant is one of the most critical issues that we have in the community in terms of continually running and expanding.
Absolutely.
Now, Derek, you were reading. Was all this off the top of your head, or were you reading it?
I was reading it. Don't give me that sort of credit. My brain's full enough. I can't even remember my kids' names. I only have 2.
Could you please send me a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Easier than trying to do this out of archive.
Yeah.
Jerry, you had a question?
Derek, just to reiterate, this is out of operations, not out of retained earnings?
Correct. Every year their annual operating budget has about $1.1 million that you put as capital within there. but they can't spend that without without town meeting authorizing the expenditure.
Any other questions? Derek, in the operating budget itself, I've noticed that the labor line item has decreased some 105 or 150,000, somewhere in that category.
Yeah, they part of what we're doing is we've been having real difficulty pulling in the laborers, actually recruiting and hiring some of the laborers. So we've hired a company to go through a few days a week on all the pump stations, and that's the plan to hire them, go through, do the engineering work on them, but also have one of our operators following them. So we're gaining institutional knowledge as well. I'm sorry, I have a call coming through. Let me decline that. There you go. Looks, I can see everybody again. So that's part of just pushing down on realizing that there's no need to appropriate for those positions if we can't get them right now, and changing a little bit of our method of how we're doing it.
But you're still getting the work done, just in an alternative method.
In a strange way, we're getting more work done because we actually will have people in there focusing on those was almost 47 pump stations, and that's what they're dedicated to week in, week out, going through each one, and such as that. So,
Anything else, gentlemen? Oh, Alan's on, okay. But that would take care of Article 6. Any further questions on Article 6, gentlemen?
No, Derek, you have to rewrite Article 6.
um,
How's that going to be presented?
what we do is there's a motion on there that says it would say to approve the capital plan. We'll put these items on there in a grid. Department, WPCF,
Yeah.
item, Narrows Force Main, amount, 150, funding source, annual WPCF budget.
Well, the only reason I ask is, to try to get these things cleaned up is make a motion that we recommend approval as written. I mean, you only got to put a graph in there per se, correct?
I just do a quick chart.
Yeah. I don't know if Bernie feels that's appropriate at this time. It's not going to change between now and town meeting. Or it shouldn't
With
be.
the explanation that Derek's going to send me, the dollar value will have a purpose. Anything else, Jody?
No, I just try to clean these things up, that's all.
Okay. Then let's move on to Article 7, which is the budget itself. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that has a copy of it. What about the significant personnel changes, Derek? Any layoffs? You working through furloughs primarily? Is everybody taking zero on their contract, et cetera?
Yeah, just so we go through it, we've approached the unions on furloughs essentially to match up what a 2% reduction is across the board. We do not have any agreements at this point. I know of at least one vote, and we've spoken to a few of the others. And when it comes down to it, the budgets are going to be reduced by that amount. So if we don't have the appropriation, you can't pay it at the end of the day. So.
Do we maintain the level of personnel across the board, including the police department?
We do not. We know that there's one position in the police department that was just recently vacated that we will not be filling that position, so we defunded it. One part-time other position at the police department's defunded. Mechanics position over at municipal maintenance defunded. The code enforcement and inspectional services defunded. A change in positions over at the DNR, which is changing a position to one position that's been slightly upgraded, and then the other that's vacant to be drastically lowered to another unit position. And we're going to COA. It will be a part-time director. We're changing that up. So we have some real impacts across the board, as well as the reductions in salary through furlough or other methods.
So these are all primarily empty positions already?
Correct, yeah. One recently emptied and such. So my thought process was to go through those. It's difficult because inspectional services, obviously we're trying to make strides and we want that position of code enforcement, but it's not a great time. So we'll cherry pick through some of those, and then we'll see what the unions have to say, and we'll take whatever actions we have to.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen? No
Tough
questions.
times. I hate to see us going back this way, but
Yep.
we don't have much choice, unfortunately.
It, Dave, you've been a part of this for a while with us from when we were crawling out of the hole, if you will, and it felt like we were just pulling up over the lip and somebody kicked us in the head to knock you right back into it. So,
Yes.
and all joking aside, we have employees going above and beyond now. And here we are asking them in some of the most difficult times to take pay cuts. And it's not easy and it's not good. And I'm sorry to have to do it. So.
The unfortunate part is it became normal for us to be running on a short staff throughout the system. And now in this situation, we're even worse. So it's like we struggle taking 2 steps forward and we end up under the circumstances having to take 3 steps back. Any other questions, gentlemen, on the budget? This is the big one. This is the big one.
Yeah, I just want, have you heard of any maybe drastic changes down the road for the good or the bad, or what you got feeling? I mean, I know you're talking 10% the state and everything else. Is everything kind of status quo?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you think about what's happened over the last week or so between the protests, some turning into riots, that's going to eat up more of the state surpluses as well.
You tell people that and they think you're crazy.
Nope, it's absolutely the costs for these are coming from somewhere, and it's from the Commonwealth. So we're
Well, the local towns too, the police officers, a lot of it's overtime. I mean, that's coming from somewhere.
right. We have them on. It's we're always hoping for the best, and then you plan for the worst. We have amazing residents. We have great people. We have a couple protests scheduled, and I think our people are fantastic. And we would never contest a protest, and our job is to work with them and get them where they're going safe, and let them do their thing. And I think, again, it's our people. We've got fantastic residents. We've got a great police department that's always been a part of the community. So we'll hope for the best.
Just on that note, I was in a small business in Onset this morning, and an officer came in just to kind of give him a heads up and to be safe in some of the things he may want to do and not do. And it was refreshing, and made me feel a lot better just listening to him. What they came forward like that. But he was going to every business down in Onset to kind of give him a heads up. I thought that was really a good idea.
Yep, Chief Walsek, his command staff, and the men and women of the entire department are fantastic.
Yeah. It was nice to hear him. It was comforting under the circumstances.
It's and not to beat not just a dead horse, but a dead and buried horse. At the end of the day, one of the things we've tried to get across, and I don't think anybody's truly understood that. I probably shouldn't go down this path, but for a couple hundred extra dollars a year, the type of community you could have and the safety, if if we could, per person, if we could get the funding into the police department and change those things, with community policing, with response teams and stuff. And it's, I think they do an amazing job, but if you realize what you've seen it, what they're working with and the results, it's just too bad, because we can give the community anything they want if they're willing to pay for it. And that policing is one of them that we're on the cusp of being in much tougher situations. So,
Yeah. I mean, I know in my own personal feelings, if some kind of small windfall came forward for someplace, my first priority, I'm just speaking for myself, would be getting public safety back up in a little more meaning. And I know about the kids, I've heard it a gazillion times, but I think the police force is just, in this day and age, it's a changing world.
yeah. And I mean, and it's a very
The entire group. These are, yes, our employees. They're also our friends and neighbors.
Yep.
Anything else, gentlemen? There was the only two articles that were still open on the annual town meeting. And before we go to the special, I would ask if we could do a vote on for approval. And Article 6, which is the FY21 capital plan. May I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Jody's and David second. Any other discussion? There being none on Article 6, all those in favor, I'll have to call the roll. David?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Glenn? Jerry?
Yes.
And Bernie's yes. It's unanimous, 5-0-0. On the budget, Article 7. May I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Jody's mode. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
David second. Any further discussion? Okay, there being none, and as soon as we sign off here, I'll get copies of that, the budget passed out to you. So we're retroactively approving it. I'll take a poll. David,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn, Jerry,
Yes.
and Bernie, yes. 5-0-0. Thank you.
Now, there are going to be copies of these for the town meeting members, whatever we have at the time.
Yeah, and my goal is, I know I can. I'm, as you know, I like to go through and go through and go through and go through, but I'd love to get it up on the website and say this is what we're going forward with and get it out ahead of time. I mean, there's not much. I mean, what can we do at this point, right? What can you contest on it or not contest? So.
You
Indeed.
just got to go forward with the best information you have at the time. I mean, that's.
And we'll see what happens. We'll make adjustments with what happens. One of the big things people forget is they say, oh, well, just in case, why don't you just give the school extra money? That school budget can't be reduced thereafter. I can't transfer out of that if things get worse or anything like that. So that's always the thing to keep in mind. There's
That
some
black hole that goes into. I'll say
there's
it.
some clever people out there.
And Derek, if you have any charts, your bar charts or pie charts that you'd like to go in, if you get them to me, and we'll take care of it. The printing, I'm going to do about 150 of them, and they'll come out of Staples.
Okay, wonderful. I'll get some of those over. Maybe I'm just trying to figure out. I'm just changing. They didn't carry over on my lines to them, but it's just a little bit of work, and I might add one more just showing the percent reductions, yada, yada, yada. So.
Okay, doke. Now in the special town meeting, there's a large number of articles there, and Article 1 is for budget transfers. Do you have any coming up for the this fiscal year?
Yes, sir. So the location we will be taking from is the unemployment line. The total amount we will be transferring out is $76,630. It'll be transferred to debt service, the short-term interest debt. We're looking at FICA being short, so we'll transfer 22,000 to that. General services, 5,000, and that's been constantly in arrears, which is why you'd see the big jump in this year's budget. Legal services, 3,000. Council on Aging expenses, which we don't have as a line right now, but 500. There's a bill from the beginning of the year that's been out there, and it's accrued some issues on it. And I can't hit that against the grant, so we'll transfer out. And police expenses, $30,000. That is me adding that in just with what's happening. I know we have room. We'd have the ability to absorb some of the salary, but there might be some equipment and some other expenses. So I'd just like to transfer that into their budget. If they don't use it, fine. And if they do, I don't want to have to worry about it.
And this is all coming out of the unemployment line.
Correct. So a total of $76,630.
Okay.
And the unemployment is coming from free cash this year, is that correct?
FY21, we will do unemployment as a separate article. We'll do that separate article will become the place you hit unemployment against. And the thing to remember is we are taking that out of the budget, and it's been historically we've had a little bit of a surplus except for the bad years in unemployment. So we will not have that as a transfer source in the future for any shortfalls in the budgets. So that's
All right.
That's one warning to myself and everyone.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Okay, it's Article 1. As we go through them, I'm going to ask for a vote on each one of them so we make sure we don't have to go back and take care of this. So can I have a motion to approve on special town meeting Article 1?
So moved.
Second, whatever.
David moved, Jody second. Any further discussion? There being none, a call for a roll call. David?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Glenn? Jerry?
Yes.
And myself is yes. It's 500. Thank you. We've voted on Article 2, and now on Article 3, it's the spring 2020 capital plan. Do you have anything in that, Derek?
No, for the special, I believe that's the only thing we have is WPCF again because we froze all town capital items, and that should be covered under the Article 10, the WPCF funding request.
Yes. Okay, so there's no requests.
Oh, there's lots of requests, but
Yeah.
You probably asked the question just to be kind and courteous. Yes, okay. Article 4 is a transfer of available funds.
Article 4 will be where we're transferring $300,000 from free cash, which I was trying to log into Gateway real quick just to double check. But I believe that would leave us with about $956,000. I'll have the final numbers for you after we hang up, if you will. And the $300,000 is to fund unemployment for FY21. It becomes its own article and sits out there going forward.
Okay, that's where you've done it. Good. Any questions, gentlemen? There being none, Can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second,
Motion's made and seconded with Jody and David. Call the roll. David,
yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn? Glenn? Yes. Jerry?
Yes.
And Bernie's yes. 500. We did PEG access, which is Article 5. Next one we'll consider, well,
Bernie, did I give you the final, the new number on that, the PEG access?
no, you didn't.
It is because we have the extra, essentially the extra quarter in there. And we're always sort of trending behind. I think we should get this money to them. We have it in the account. There's no value to us holding on to it.
Right.
And Steve Ruiz is probably listening, so I'll make his day. $422,766.22.
26 cents?
22 cents.
2 cents, okay.
422,766.22.
Yeah, it was only the cents. No, we got that covered. Okay, thank you. Um,
Got to be an in and an out. Can't.
and the only one we have not voted on of all those that maybe considered would be Article 15, which is the union contracts.
So, and again, I apologize with the scan. There's two that we have to bring forward. One is the library union, which I'll go through. It is a 3-year contract, and it goes from the July 1, 2019, so this fiscal year through June 30th of 2022. So there would be retro in there, which we have covered. It is a 2% increase for them in each of the fiscal years. So the impact for this year is about $3,400. It covers three members. We also, out of the reserve that we have for union contracts, they have acquired vacation time beyond some of the normal contracts. So we were getting rid of a lot of that and buying down some of those days at a partial rate. That is still, we have it in here. What that it would be, those that have 500 hours would only be allowed to carry over 300, and then it's a use it or lose it, or we would buy 50% of the time. So that's actually, as you know, vacation time is a benefit.
Mhm.
It's considered salary for most of these, so that's a good benefit to the town to be able to get rid of that going forward on 50%. And frankly, I don't want people carrying a larger load, and we're paying that out at a higher rate going into the future. I want to get that liability.
So this
So
is
what can they accumulate now?
The most for these would be for those hired prior to 2015 would be 300 hours, and then those hired after are 200 hours total.
Oh, vacation time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so 200 hours would be 5 weeks that they're allowed to carry over.
Yeah.
So without getting into negotiations, well, a lot of the contracts we've reduced that, and they're not anywhere near this. So these are somehow are in carryover from another time. So
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
yeah, and it's that's an emotional thing for employees as well.
And you have another contract?
And then we have the dispatchers, which are the communications officers for the town, and that's also a 3-year. And theirs is a 2, 2, and 2, and then Sometimes some places that don't have the same steps or don't have longevity, we catch up with other groups. This group has for 20 years of service, they will now receive an annual longevity pay of $1,000, which some places it's a step increase of 3, 4, or 5%. So, setting it at a flat rate, so it's a good deal for the town, and it makes sense, especially with dispatchers, having somebody in there for 20 years. They know what they're doing. We've got some really great folks there, and I think it's well worthwhile. I should also let you know the caveat that these are units that have been contacted about the furloughs as well. So understanding this is baked in with the furlough reduction for FY21. So this
Everything's up front.
on top of the budget, and we have the retro amounts in this year's budget as well.
Okay, and that's transferred out of reserves for contract settlement?
Correct. I believe we had proposed when we set the budget, we had 2% for each of them. Great planning, I guess, but yeah, it's that's where we stand with it. So we do have that reserve in case any of these retros were to go over budget for this fiscal year.
Any other questions, gentlemen? There being none, I'll ask for a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Jody approved. May I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. I'll call the roll. David?
Question on this. Should we approve this at this point, or should we wait until the contracts have been approved and Derek has signed contracts?
No, they're not a signed contract and guaranteed until town meeting approves them. So you need a town meeting action the town does, the school does not for their contracts. But according to 150E, we need even if we have the funding form, you need an action of town meeting, which is why, even though technically we had it in the budget and we even had reserves, we need town meeting's action to fund these. So.
All right. Have they been approved by the unions? You said they were pending.
The communications is all set. The library one, there's just some portion as the timeliness of the vacation. And what I'm going to do is hopefully get that approved pending the final outcome, because if they don't agree to that language, we're not going to have a contract, and we can bring it back at another time. But I think speaking to the union rep, I told them I would bring it forward in such a manner so that the whole unit's not hurt over concern of different members, if that makes sense.
That does.
Any other questions? Call the roll then. David?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Glenn? Jerry?
Yes.
And Bernie's yes, 500. That is the end. While we have Derek, is there any questions or concerns you might want to address to him?
Oh, boy.
I'm trying to hit the exit button real quick.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Okay, now the money is an issue, and I think Alan has been aware of it. We've been on meetings with MMA and ATFC and all, and as far as the state is concerned and their action, it's anticipated they won't have a budget until fall, and which would correspond around the time frame that we have our fall town meeting. So we won't really know what the final cherry sheet may have for funds for us. And so that's frustrating, because they're also going to be suffering as much as we do with the failure of revenues, tax revenues. And I was reading in the paper where the Mass Tax has increased their estimate of the loss considerably. It almost doubled for the state revenues.
Ernie, you're beginning to sound like me. Usually I give all the bad news.
Well, I get on these calls. I was on yesterday afternoon with, I think, about 300 of my closest friends. And it's unfortunate. These people are trying, and of course, they're the lobbyists for the municipalities across the state. And they do tend to keep up on the information as good as anyone does. I mean, not that it's good information, but at least we have information on it.
Yeah, it's and one of the things that's been difficult for me, Mr. Chairman, is when I tell people it's my projection and it's resulting in layoffs or reductions in in salaries and such as that. But we cannot wait till the 11th hour to make these changes. And I look at it, if I have to make cuts, and this goes beyond fall town meeting when we finally get our budget, how do you set the tax rate? And then I'm making cuts in November, which is would be basically in December, and you're doing double. You have to make up $1 million. Well, technically you're making up $2 million because you're cutting in 6 months $1 million, which would have been, you could have spread over 12 months beforehand. So I think it's the right and prudent action, and I feel terrible for the employees it's impacting.
Well, it's difficult too because you do all the projections. And if you don't tell us what the worst case scenario is, we find fault with you when you've given us a rosy picture and find out we have to lay people off. I'd rather hear from you that, 10 people are going to get laid off, and we finally do the paperwork and get it all done, and only 2. It makes feel better, and it doesn't do well for you because everybody's going to be finding fault with the doom news that you've projected, yet it's in the best interest of the town to do so. Dominic just joined us. Hey, Dom. It'll take him 5 minutes to figure out how to unmute.
Side note, our electric vehicles, their contract would be up this June. However, there's no stock in the bolts. We can't find them anywhere. So what we're doing is we're extending the leases that we currently have for the 3 electric vehicle. We can do it at 2 months at a time. The cost is about $1,100 during that period. We still have funds left over from the original funding of about $2,800, so we can get at least 4 more months out of those. And we are, once we can locate some bolts on hopefully the same deal, we are trying to get together with the green programs and getting matches for them from the state and other such grants. So.
And that green program is definitely beneficial for us.
So municipal maintenance has done a fantastic job too with the green communities, and we've allocated to some different plans, including some of the external lighting for the high school, middle school, and we're trying to spread it across for the biggest return on investment for those funds. So.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I have a question for Derek. When all is said and done, do you expect to get any money from the state?
We're losing you, Jerry.
Do you expect to get any money funded through the federal for the COVID virus, whatever you call it?
Yeah, just so, and Joanna, this reminds you, gentleman from town, send me a nice email alerting us to CARES Act funding. We knew about it, have been with it. I really should thank him just for thinking about its own community. but it's sort of giving a false impression, folks. Right now, there's $956,000 available to our town in COVID-19 reimbursement for costs that were not budgeted in your regular budget, and have to be directly related to COVID-19 and all these other measures. So we would probably be reimbursed in the amount of 35 to 50,000 in this first round. Just one of the things I think you understand. I'm not the type that's going to spend frivolously just so we can get some of the some federal money back in here. The expenditures we're doing are real and are needed. So,
If it was salary expenditures, would you also be able to add in fringe benefits and all that kind of stuff to the basic pay?
no, it's really we've been hitting off of just it's the overtime result that's resulted from COVID-19. You've already paid their fringe benefits, so that's already budgeted. That wouldn't be in excess. But I love the way you think.
Yeah. Give me another hour.
Yeah.
Okay, now hopefully we'll be able to get this put to bed mostly. David's already done some wordsmithing, as he calls it, for some of the recommendations for the warrant articles. If there's anything in particular, a comment or a particular fact that you would like to have included in it, either feel free to write the recommendation yourself or just give it to one of us or put it to all of us, and we'll incorporate it in what we're writing. Any comments, gentlemen?
So, Bernie, we're just writing comments on just the warrant articles that are going to be.
Yes, moneyed articles.
Okay, and then second,
Yeah.
are you going to then send to each of us the articles that we're going to be responsible to write? How are you going to work it?
I would ask that you consult or consider doing anything that's of your interest that you feel you would like to do. If you feel more comfortable, I could certainly assign them.
Well, assigning them assures that everybody gets,
Okay, I will assign them then.
Yeah, well, my only thought on that was for the sake of time. I mean, we're gonna be sitting with the general people with the regular town meeting, is getting to a microphone and stuff. It's just gonna take time. I mean, I don't know. It's a no-win no matter how you do it, but I'm just thinking some of us move a little faster than others. I'll leave it at that.
Claire is heavily involved in the logistics of how it's going to work on the floor of town meeting. As far as any of the other articles, it is her intent to not to call them at all. And so when she adjourns, these articles will die, or there can be a similar to the omnibus article we're going to do for the finance, is bundle all those other articles not heard into an omnibus and have referred to the next annual or special town meeting. Because all of the only one that's really of any unusual application would be the petitioned article. If that just dies, they have to go out and get their petitions all over again.
Oh, boy.
It's an inconvenience for them. I mean, I'm sure they've.
No, it's a hot subject too.
It is a citizen's petition article. I think it should be given some leeway should be given for them, because these circumstances are through no one's fault,
Nope.
and to be penalized in that way. But it's up to the moderator to make that decision how she wants to handle it.
Okay, so just for clarification, no matter who writes the FinCom narrative, you're the one necessary that's going.
Can you say that again, Jerry?
Regardless of who writes the FinCom comment for the warrant, you're going to be the one that you will be the only FinCom member that night that is answering or reading comments.
Yes.
Okay.
You're gonna be the only spokesperson,
Yes,
period. Okay.
because you'll all be sitting out amongst chairs
Yep.
and the access to microphones, et cetera. I'm not sure how that's going to be handled at all. She's trying to resolve that issue because, of course, every time you speak into a microphone, that microphone is going to have to be sanitized before the next person can do it.
Never thought of that.
As much as possible. It's going to be interesting to find out, she's going to have one place where those who either cannot or refuse to wear a mask, and then another area where the primary business of the town meeting is going to take place where everybody's required to wear a mask. It'll be interesting because Jody and I are familiar because we both came from a representative town meeting, and that they can do remotely because they can identify each one of the members. They're all elected members, and so there's only 168 that are available, and it can identify them on the system. The other one, someone was doing, I think the remotely was Lexington. There was another one coming up. They were doing it in the football field. And they were, of course, microphones, getting everybody out there, how they're going to walk a person to a chair, tie them down to the chair so they don't move around. It's quite a logistic nightmare because when we get there and we're so accustomed to talking to our neighbor and all, and yet you don't want that to happen. Anything else, gentlemen? Derek, if you send me all that stuff at your convenience, and I'll pass it on to everybody.
Beautiful.
And anything else, gentlemen? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. And before I dismiss you, I just want to make you aware of all of these our meetings are archived on WCTV.